So those were some of my big ahas. And then reaching for something that I wanted, I found that to be really interesting as well, because it just kind of opened up possibility and focus and possibility in a new way. It was neat.
Oh, that's so great.
I have to build on that. I think that was so brilliant of a focus, because when I was focusing on just expanding my side, it felt more like work. And then you're like, oh, there's something that you want. And it felt like ease. It's like, yes, this is enjoyable.
Nice. But yeah, the idea that there's something that you desire that you're reaching towards. And I think that compares to with the very Feldenkraisian idea of the difference between effort and just work, like the nice feeling of work. And we all know what that difference is.
Mhm.
And what he would say is it's when you're doing the effort, you're putting work in that isn't giving you back what you want.
Yeah.
And so if you find yourself using energy that doesn't result in the movement or the change or the reaching that you wanted, then that's a great thing to learn to modify.
Mhm.
So as soon as you feel that effort thing, I mean, I teach kayakers, so I'm not telling them that, I mean, they want to be doing an effort when they're rushing towards a rock or, whatever. But noticing the difference and not always saying, oh, yes, work harder.
Yeah.
Liz, what do you got?
Yeah, that was a big takeaway for me too. Like when we first started and we're just doing like small motions, it felt very pleasurable and nice to just go a little to the right. I was like, ah. And then I did that to the left and I was like, ow. Like it doesn't feel good to the left. Like I guess that tells me my pelvis is uneven right now or something, but like it felt bruisey on the back of my hip. And so I was like, all right, well, and then I was like, okay, am I going to the left just because those are the instructions? Or I mean, I wasn't really thinking that as a baby. I'm thinking that now.
Right.
But I was just like, then I was like, why am I still doing it? And I was like, oh, I'm curious. I'm curious if it'll change, and I'm curious if I might learn something. And then I was like, let me see what happens when I go further on, so it was like, it kept me going. Because I was a baby, I wasn't pushing myself. I was just testing it and like wondering, and that felt really nice. And then I realized when you said something about leading with your eyes instead of your hip and going further over, like the energetics of it changed. Like in my mind, at first it was like a J shape, like my body was moving in a J when the movements were subtler, and then it turned into like a C.
Right.
And then when I flopped into the sea, it felt nice. And so I was just, exploring, like it was explorative, and that felt really good.
Nice.
Yeah. And there's this idea that we have a choice. I mean, there's always some little way you could breathe a little bit differently, or you could arch some way, or you could change the sequence. And if your question is, how could it be easier? How could it be more pleasurable? There's just such a treasure trove to be found. And right now I can't really intellectually tie it to mediation. I mean, there's the usual, this sensation, and I have it the same as you three do just from watching it. But this sensation of sort of playful calm is a very nice place to be in if you were about to walk into a mediation, right?
My big tie-in for mediation was the chunkiness that I felt with my original movements, where I was leading with my knees, and then you said try leading with your eyes, and just trying to coordinate all of that. And for me, that was a big tie-in, which I probably shouldn't have been thinking about while I was doing my, I was supposed to be in baby mode, but I was thinking that's so interesting, because what happens when you're in a session and you really give in to just watching, just using your eyes first and letting things unfold instead of anticipating the next words out of your mouth or the next move, you know?
Mm.
So for me, there was a lesson of fluidity and quiet and watchfulness in that one part of the exercise.
See, that gave me my tell. My tell is the goosebumps.
Yeah.
And see, that's interesting because of course we're keeping the safe environment. So I guess we're in control. But it's sort of like not, you go out of the dichotomy of control or not control with this fluidity that you're describing. I can't describe it any better than you did, but I love it.
Hmm.
I love it.
I want to
So,
bring that connection to choice and curiosity. I love that you asked yourself that question, like, why am I still doing this? Oh, it's because I'm curious. I love that. And to also thinking about that as, you know, there's all these choices that we have as mediators as well. There's all these choices that we have. And I think the foundation of making those choices starts with curiosity, which leads to questioning. Right?
yeah.
Questioning. And so to be able to, you know, pull back to say, okay, I know I have other options here. Like, what are the options, or what do I need to lean into? Like, what do I need to focus on? What do I need to get more curious about? What do I need to understand better in order to move into that choice effectively? That was a
Well,
cool moment for me. Thanks.
and the connection with self-care, because why wouldn't one of our criteria and how we mediate be what's fun for us?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't mean that selfishly, but in all the choices we have, which would be more effective and what's the best use of time, and have I been balanced with the different parties and blah, 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 blah. How about, I kind of feel good to go that way.
Another thing about the exercise that was so good is when you like empowered us to make a choice and be like, there's an object and I want it. Then it was interesting to see what my body did to be like, oh yeah, I have agency and I'm going to challenge myself to achieve this goal I have. That was a real shift from just sensing if it felt pleasurable or uncomfortable, or like it went from curiosity to like, let me challenge myself now and like navigate this. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was almost like happenstance versus like design or something like.
Yeah. So the baby has a little bit of ambition. At first, the baby's just randomly curious, but it builds up to actually, I want that thing.
Mm.
And so that's cool. The other thing that, Moira, I like about the self-care is we realize for ourselves that we want the calm or we want the agency or whatever. It also gives me more compassion for how little agency the parties usually feel that they have.
Yeah.